My boyfriend's best man exposed my past in his wedding speech to humiliate me, but I thanked him by reminding him of his own past. And now he's running out of our wedding in tears. Did I go too far? First, let me clarify that Nate is now my husband, and Tom is his best friend. I met Nate during college when he was 2 years older than me. We ran into each other at a university party. At that time, Nate and his friend Tom were quite famous on campus. They'd earned a reputation as womanizers. My friends were very clear in their warnings to stay away from them, and I intended to follow that advice. In fact, I was consciously avoiding Nate and Tom at that party, making an effort to keep my distance. But then Nate approached me. He had a natural charisma that was hard to ignore. He wasn't just charming in conversation. He was kind and genuinely interested in getting to know me. There was something about the way he spoke and behaved that made him stand out from the image that had been painted for me. Despite my reservations, I found myself quite captivated by him, though I didn't take things further after that party since I wasn't sure. However, Nate didn't give up. For days, he kept finding ways to cross paths with me or start a conversation, always with that same warm and enthusiastic attitude. Over time, I began to soften toward him. Against my initial judgment, I agreed to go on a single date with him, expecting it to be nothing more than a casual encounter. To my surprise, Nate exceeded all expectations I had. He was very honest with me during our date. He spoke openly about the reputation he had at university, addressing the rumors head-on. It was refreshing and showed a side of him I hadn't anticipated, a mature, self-aware, and reflective side. After that date, we started seeing each other more frequently, spending time together, and really getting to know each other. Thanks to this, I began to see the real Nate. He was much more than what people said about him, and slowly, I began to fall in love with him. During the development of this relationship, Nate's best friend and roommate, Tom, made it clear that he didn't like me. They shared an apartment during college, splitting the rent and spending a lot of time together, so naturally, I saw Tom frequently whenever I visited Nate. From the beginning, Tom made it clear that he wasn't particularly thrilled with my presence in Nate's life. He never said it directly, but his actions and words spoke for themselves. Whenever Nate and I were together, he would make sarcastic comments about how Nate was becoming boring by spending too much time with just one woman. To him, it was unthinkable that his friend would devote so much time and attention to just me. When Nate wasn't around, Tom would sometimes taunt me, almost gleefully predicting that Nate would eventually tire of me as he used to do with other women. According to Tom, it was only a matter of time before Nate lost his sudden interest in me and moved on to the next girl, as he always did. However, that never happened. Nate and I became increasingly serious, and I could tell that Tom was not only surprised, but disturbed by this. When we officially became a couple, Tom's teasing turned into open hostility. I vividly remember one particular argument. Tom questioned Nate's decision to be with someone like me, and he said it with contempt, pointing out that I wasn't beautiful or blonde, implying that somehow I wasn't good enough to be Nate's girlfriend. I'm glad Tom attacked me so openly because it made Nate see for the first time how much his best friend despised me. I didn't need to say anything. Nate wouldn't tolerate it. He yelled at Tom and forbade him from speaking about me that way again. Nate made it clear that he would not allow any disrespect toward me. Instead of backing down, Tom doubled his efforts. He insisted that he knew Nate better than anyone, and based on their years of friendship, he was sure I wasn't the right woman for Nate. After this, Nate and Tom had a heated argument. Nate demanded that his friend apologize to me, but Tom stubbornly refused, intensifying the tension between them even more. After that incident, Nate and I began to distance ourselves from Tom as much as possible. Nate was deeply upset by the way Tom had spoken about me, and by his unwillingness to respect our relationship. For my part, I was truly happy that Tom had unmasked himself and that Nate was on my side. The way Nate defended me only made me fall more in love with him. When the time came for Nate and Tom to renew their lease, Nate decided not to continue living with Tom. Instead, Nate and I decided to take the next step in our relationship and look for a place to live together. It was clear that Tom was even more angry about all this, taking it as a personal betrayal. This immature man was so furious with me that one day on campus, he confronted me in a fit of rage. He made a scene in front of everyone just because Nate hadn't wanted to renew the lease with him. He said I was the one who had ruined their friendship. I'm not one to stay quiet, especially in the face of accusations that had no basis, particularly considering how melodramatic and irrational he was being. I told Tom he needed to stop overreacting because he didn't look like a man. He looked like a woman. I explained that Nate and I had made a mutual decision to move forward in our relationship, and it wasn't about him. I also told him clearly that if he had a problem, he should talk to Nate about it, instead of taking out his anger on me. Later, when Nate found out about this confrontation, he was furious with his friend. Nate warned him to stay away from me and never speak to me that way again. As planned, Nate and I moved in together. With that, we made the conscious decision to cut Tom out of our lives. I knew it was difficult for Nate given their history as friends, but he believed it was necessary. After college, Nate and I moved to another city for our jobs. Our relationship continued to grow, and we've been very happy together. 3 months ago, Nate proposed to me. All our friends and family are very happy for us. During this time, Tom unexpectedly reappeared. It turns out that Tom contacted Nate through Facebook, wanting to reconnect. We discovered that he had also moved to the same city where we now live. Tom wanted to meet with Nate after all these years and catch up. When Nate told me that Tom had appeared, I was surprised, I won't deny it, but I wasn't completely against it. Given the time that had passed since the old college drama, I saw no problem with them meeting. After all, some people change, and I trusted Nate's judgment to handle the situation maturely. After their meeting, Nate came home and told me that Tom seemed much calmer and more centered than in college. Perhaps he had matured. Additionally, Tom seemed genuinely interested in catching up on Nate's life and even in learning more about our relationship. He even apologized to Nate for all the times he had disparaged me during college, which surprised me. I didn't expect such sincerity from Tom. Tom also told Nate that he was currently engaged to a girl named Georgia, and they were in the midst of planning their wedding. I was sincerely happy for Tom, and it reassured me to know that he seemed to be in a good place. In the following weeks, Nate and Tom spent several weekends together playing golf and doing friend things. Unfortunately, my own schedule has been incredibly busy between work responsibilities and the endless details of wedding planning. I simply haven't had time to see Tom in person yet. I have, however, spoken to him briefly on the phone a couple of times. He was polite and kind during those conversations, and it seemed that he had truly matured. Today, Nate and I were discussing the wedding, and he surprised me by asking if he could make Tom his best man. Until now, Nate hadn't decided who would fill that role, and given how close he and Tom once were, it's clear that this decision means a lot to Nate, especially with the way they've reconnected in recent weeks. Although I want to say yes, I can't help but feel a sense of unease at the possibility. I recognize that people change, and from everything Nate has told me, it seems Tom has matured since then. On the surface, I should probably feel good about this decision. However, I can't help but remember the history between us, the things Tom said and did that deeply hurt me back then. He didn't approve of our relationship at that time, and although he now seems polite, I don't know if all of that has disappeared. At the same time, I know how much Nate values his friendship with Tom. They shared much of their lives during college, and reconnecting now seems to have brought a lot of happiness to Nate. I don't want to be the person who stands in the way of that, or tells Nate he shouldn't have his best friend by his side on such an important day. If I expressed my discomfort and asked Nate not to choose Tom as his best man, I know that Nate would absolutely listen to me. That's the kind of person he is. I have no doubt that he would respect my wishes without thinking twice, simply because he loves me and wants me to feel safe. But I don't want to use that card with my partner. I don't want to seem controlling or like I can't let go of the past. However, there's a small voice inside me that keeps telling me to be careful. So, Reddit, am I the bad guy if I refuse to let Tom be part of our wedding celebration? Or am I overthinking things? Update 1. I've read all your comments and agree that Tom might have unresolved feelings about me, but it's also clear that he misses his best friend, Nate. That's probably why he decided to get in touch after so long. After reflecting, I've made the decision not to prevent Nate from inviting Tom to be his best man. It means a lot to Nate to have his college best friend, and I don't want to take away that joy. The wedding belongs to both of us, and if he wants Tom there, I should accept it. Throughout our relationship, Nate has always shown me nothing but love, respect, and unwavering support. In the past, he stood up to Tom for me and established clear boundaries, even when that meant putting their friendship at risk. That gives me confidence now to trust his judgment and his choice. I know Nate hasn't taken this decision lightly, so if he feels that Tom deserves this role in our wedding, I'm willing to support him. More importantly, I see this as an opportunity for all of us to finally leave the past behind. From the bottom of my heart, I hope everything goes well. Update 2. We're now married, and I finally saw Tom and met his fiancée, Georgia. But as a warning, things didn't turn out exactly as we planned at first. During the wedding, Tom seemed to be polite and cordial with me. His fiancée was full of enthusiasm, talking about plans for her own wedding, and everything seemed warm and friendly. However, it was during the reception when the real problem began. That's when Tom stood up to give his speech as the best man. I was prepared for the typical speeches of humor, sentimentality, and memories. At first, that was exactly what happened. Tom spoke about his long friendship with Nate. He was somewhat drunk, which was understandable given the amount of alcohol everyone had been consuming, but he was still coherent. However, things took a turn when he mentioned me in his speech. He began a strange and inappropriate comment about me. Tom described me as naive when I arrived at college, emphasizing that I had no experience in the dating realm. This was true, so I laughed nervously, though it was embarrassing. But then he mentioned that I was a virgin back then, and implied that I only fell in love with Nate because he was the first person who ever touched me. I felt a lump in my throat, and beside me, Nate also reflected my own horror. Yes, it was true that before Nate, I hadn't seriously dated anyone and had little experience in relationships. But what did that have to do with anything? Why mention it now? What really hurt was when Tom continued in his speech, saying that Nate was the best I could get, implying that I had clung to him out of desperation because I had no other options. He said it like it was a joke, as if we should all laugh with him. But no one did. I saw the fury in my husband's eyes as he abruptly stood up, headed toward Tom, and snatched the microphone from his hand. Nate didn't hesitate for a second. He wasn't going to allow this to continue. Tom, however, didn't seem fazed. Then, as if to twist the knife even further, he turned his gaze toward me and smiled arrogantly. "Well," he said, "it's not like I said any lies." His smug attitude made it even more irritating. It became clear to me that Tom had done this on purpose. He still held a grudge after all these years. All of this was premeditated. I couldn't blame it on alcohol. However, he messed with the wrong person on the worst possible day. This immature man needed to learn a lesson. He needed to be put in his place once and for all. With a smile, I took the microphone from Nate's hand. Nate looked at me but didn't stop me. I stood up from my seat and turned to face Tom, who was still laughing because he didn't expect what was about to come. "Well, Tom," I began, "I must admit that I'm surprised you've mentioned our college days. It seems you have very vivid memories of me, but I also have some pretty interesting memories of you." Tom's smile faded slightly, but he tried to maintain his composure. He wasn't as confident as before. "You know," I continued, "what I remember most about you in college wasn't your great friendship with Nate. It was how you let all the girls use you and leave you like a disposable tissue. I paused, letting that sink in, but I wasn't finished yet. In fact, I remember how Tom contracted HIV after sleeping with a prostitute. I remember how people found out about this and how women started avoiding him at college like the plague. I turned to Tom and smiled sweetly at him. Honestly, I'm surprised you even have a fiancé now, after everything that happened. Well, good luck to her, I guess. By this point, he was no longer smiling as before, and the color of his face had completely changed. His fiancée, seated beside him, seemed absolutely stunned. She looked at him as if she was waiting for him to say it was all a joke, but it wasn't. "Tom?" Georgia asked. "Is this true?" If I had been in Tom's head at that moment, he was surely wishing the earth would swallow him up. His face was an intense shade of red, and I could see how he started to panic. Where was the arrogance and the smugness? He wanted to make a melodramatic spectacle, so typical of him at my wedding. Well, I was going to give him something better. Perhaps he thought he could humiliate me, but in the end, he was the one who left humiliated. Eventually, Tom had no choice but to admit that everything I had said about him was true. Upon hearing this confession, his fiancée Georgia erupted in anger. Without hesitation, she threw her champagne glass directly in his face, glass and all. "You lied to me," she shouted. "You have HIV and you never told me? How dare you? How could you hide this from me?" Tom tried to explain himself. He stammered that he had been on continuous medication for years and that his HIV was undetectable, trying to assure her that she had nothing to worry about. He explained that he simply couldn't admit the truth because he was afraid of losing her. He begged her to calm down so they could talk about it later, but Georgia didn't want to listen. She didn't believe a word he was saying. The damage was already done, and there was no going back. Georgia took off her engagement ring and threw it directly at his face. It was one with a diamond, and if it had hit him in the eye, he could have lost it. "I hate you. You're a liar, and I don't believe anything you say anymore. This is over. I'm done." Without saying anything more, she stormed out of the reception, leaving Tom completely humiliated. Tom ran after her, crying, desperately calling her name. He begged for forgiveness, but it was too late. I don't think you can salvage a relationship after hiding something so important. After this, I prepared myself to face potential criticism. I fully expected some of the guests, and maybe even Nate, to be upset with me for what I had done. But none of that happened. Someone simply asked for music to be played, and everyone started dancing as if to cut through the awkward moment. Several people approached me after the incident and told me they supported me with everything that happened. They even said I did the right thing by defending myself against a jerk like Tom. No one seemed angry with me for revealing the truth. Even Nate supported me. He took me aside and apologized for inviting Tom to the wedding in the first place. He told me how sorry he was that I had to go through all of that, especially on such an important day for us, all because of his poor judgment in inviting Tom as his best man. Although I greatly appreciated his support, I couldn't help but feel bad for my husband. Nate is such a good man and always sees the best in people, even when they don't deserve it. I could see that it hurt him to have let Tom back into his life, only for him to behave like an 8-year-old again. He really loved having Tom back in his life and felt good about having his best friend back these last few weeks. So that's been my wedding. I must admit, I have a pretty crazy story to tell my children and grandchildren now. Update 3. First, I want to acknowledge that I understand why some people say what Tom did could be considered criminal, especially regarding not disclosing his HIV status to his fiancée. In many places, there are legal requirements about disclosing this type of information in relationships, and if Georgia decides to take legal action, I fully support her right to hold Tom accountable for his actions. He betrayed her trust in the most unimaginable way, and I sincerely hope she gets the justice and peace of mind she deserves. As for those who think I exposed Tom out of pure malice, I want to make it clear that wasn't my intention. Yes, I wanted revenge for him mocking me at our wedding, especially for calling me a virgin and belittling me in front of our guests. But I had no idea Tom was actually hiding such a serious secret from his fiancée. I thought that at most, he would feel embarrassed in front of the guests, but I never imagined he had also been dishonest with his partner. After everything Tom has done to me, I was simply defending my dignity after years of being treated like garbage by him. The fact that he was lying to Georgia is something I never could have predicted. And if my revenge helped her find out about it, then something good has come out of all this. In some way, maybe this was the universe's way of helping Georgia. She deserves to know the truth, as painful as it may be. Now, regarding Nate, I want to take a moment to respond to the criticism directed at him. He feels terrible for having invited Tom to our wedding and has read all the comments. He agrees it was his mistake, but please understand, he had no idea what Tom was capable of. Tom acted all nice and friendly in front of Nate, just to get close enough to hurt me later. Nate genuinely believed that their years of friendship meant Tom would behave respectfully at the wedding. He could never have anticipated that Tom had planned something like this. So please don't crucify my husband. He doesn't deserve to be dragged through this mess. Also, for those suggesting I get an HIV test in case my husband is hiding something from me, I want to assure you that he's not like Tom. We both have regular medical checkups, and unlike Tom, Nate has never had relationships with sketchy women. So no, he doesn't have any STDs. Now, for everyone asking what the real reason is behind Tom's hatred for me, honestly, I don't know. I simply never appealed to him. I never did anything against Tom, never tried to keep Nate away from him, and certainly never treated him badly. Tom's animosity toward me has always been so strange and one-sided. At this point, Nate and I are on our honeymoon, trying to enjoy the peace and quiet after all the drama. Update 4. This update is for those who asked about Georgia. When we returned from our honeymoon, we got in touch with her to see how she was doing. The first thing she told us was that she had already taken the necessary tests and had not been infected by Tom. It's a relief to know they were careful. More precisely, he was, since Georgia didn't want to get pregnant before marriage. So you can rest easy now. Georgia does not have HIV. As for the possibility of Georgia filing a complaint against Tom, or at least suing him, the chances are low. Georgia spoke with a lawyer, and her chances of achieving anything about it are limited. First, because Tom didn't infect her, and second, because he had been careful while he was with her. At least Tom did something right. Since there was no direct harm, her chances of suing him are slim. She could do it anyway, and I'd like her to, but she doesn't think it's worth it. Ultimately, the important thing is that Georgia is fine. Beyond the scare, she's managed to dodge something as big as a disease like HIV. Another good thing that came out of this for her is that Tom was the one paying for the wedding, so by canceling it, Georgia won't lose money, while Tom had already spent some on reservations. If I discover anything new, maybe I'll make another update, or maybe this will be the last one. Either way, I just want to tell you all that I love you very much. Update 5. Perhaps justice couldn't do anything against Tom, but Georgia's two brothers who played defensive positions in football during college did. Nate found out that Tom received a visit from his ex-brothers-in-law, and they weren't exactly kind to him. They sent him to the hospital with a couple of broken ribs and some bruises on his body. Although, if we take into account some of your comments mentioning that Tom might have feelings for Nate, I don't know if everything was bad for him. I mean, he had contact with two men at the same time, though not in the way he might have enjoyed. Now I really hope this is my last update. See you around.